transition to clean energy requires collective efforts of government, of academia, of think tanks, and of individual citizens. And in order to promote this collectivity and in order to promote this collaboration, Sustainable Development Policy Institute has initiated a network called Clean Energy Transition Network.
Now, for the developing world, of course, at a time when we are expecting economic turbulence, there are talks about global recession, and then, of course, at a time of rising commodity and fuel prices, financing for renewable energy, financing for clean and green transition, this is something which becomes naturally very difficult.
So energy, due to the high import reliance, affects the external account. Energy also impacts the fiscal account through the circular debt as a
Once again, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Zainab Naeem, and on behalf of STPI, I greet you all a warm welcome. Today, we have organized this policy dialogue on exploring the potential of circular economy in partnership with the United Nations Environment Programme under the Global Opportunities for Sustainable Development Goals. The discussion will revolve around three themes in the format of roundtable discussion, which include the need for circular economy transition in Pakistan, green jobs and inclusive transition for circular economy, and third theme is circularity in packaging industry. Before the start of each roundtable, I'm just discussing the format that we'll request the panelists for special remarks, and then it will be followed by the discussion. We'll be sharing the recommendations of this dialogue in the form of a policy brief with our partners and key stakeholders. I would now request Dr. Abid Suleri, Executive Director, STPI, for his welcome remarks.
Thank you, Zainab. Madam Rumina Khurshid, Special Assistant to Prime Minister, all the distinguished panelists on the head table and distinguished panelists on roundtable, dear guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to welcome you for this roundtable on circular economy. One of the first dialogue that we are conducting, and there will be a series of dialogue to discuss circularity and the potential of circular economy in Pakistan. And I think it's the time to discuss it very opposite. The reason is that we have realized things as usual, they are not working. And the economic approaches as usual, they will not work. The linearity and linear approaches towards economic growth, linear approaches to achieve economic development, that is already showing its limits. And amidst the CCC crisis, COVID, climate change, and conflict in Ukraine that we discussed during our annual conference in December in great detail, the world in general and Pakistan in particular, we need to review and revise our ways of working. And one of the revision that one can think of is exploring the potential of circular economy. And that is what we'll be discussing it today. Now, this context and the theme of circular economy in countries like Pakistan is not new. Of course, all of us, we knew the informal setting of this circular economy, the informal setting where people, they were collecting solid waste, reusing it, reducing it, and trying to make revised new products of it. So that has been going on one can argue, in this part of the world since decades. So now, while circular economy, it has become a science and a fashion and a new normal, in countries like Pakistan, we need to actually renew some of the ways that we were, some of the practices that we have been following since decades. So we have some tangible objectives from this roundtable. We are proposing to establish a network on circular economy in Pakistan. We know that there are players, especially in formal sector now, and I'm thankful to the representatives of corporate sector and representatives of businesses and representatives of multinational who are here. And I know that all of you, in your own way, you are contributing towards circular economy as part of your ESG commitment and as part of your corporate social responsibility. So now we propose that we should be part of a broader network. And I'm glad to tell you, as director of Core Alliance. Core Alliance is the alliance of industry which is trying to reduce the use of plastic in packaging. So Core Alliance is one of this initiative, but one can broaden it beyond Core Alliance and invite other players who are willing to play their role in circular economy, or who are already playing their role in circular economy. But this network should not stop just for the sake of forming another network. We have two tangible products, research products, that we are thinking to produce in 2023. The one is State of Circular Economy in Pakistan report, trying to make an inventory of what is already being done for circular economy. So making all the island of success, bringing them together and bringing it in the form of a formal report that would we hope to launch in our 26th Sustainable Development Conference this year, going to held just before COP27. And the second, we want to do a gap analysis of what needs to be done at our policy and regulation side in order to facilitate industry to actually follow the good practices of circular economy, this reduce, reuse, and producing the new products from waste. And again, on the basis of the output of today's roundtable and the series of seminars and other consultation that we are hoping to carry out in next few months, we'll be able to bring a gap analysis of what needs to be done. And as Sherry would be joining us shortly, we hope that we'll be able to then take all the recommendations and the report to COP27 in UAE, where apart from loss and damage fund that Pakistan was taking lead on as president of Group 77, this year we want to be champion on circular economy. And because of this legislation in the assembly, Sherry is still there, but I'm thankful to Ma'am Rumina, who is here. And I would also like to welcome Mr. Adnan Jalil, who is a caretaker minister for revenue and industry, KP, for joining us. He himself represents private sector. He knows the problems of private sector. And now as a caretaker minister in KP, one is hopeful that he would be able to take the message to provincial governments as well. Thank you, Zainab, for organizing this.
Thank you, Dr. Suleri, for highlighting the program that STPI has planned to launch. And I'm sure that the stakeholders and partners would be happy to join us in the first ever network on circular economy that STPI is convening. Since we are also waiting for the Federal Minister on Climate Change, Senator Sherry Rahman, she'll be joining us shortly. In the meanwhile, I would like to request, we have also been joined by the United Nations Environment Program team online. I would like to request Ms. Adriana Zakaria Farah. She is the head and global coordinator at UNEP Go for SDGs program to give her opening remarks for this for the policy dialogue. Thank you, Adriana. Adriana, we can't hear you.
Hello, thank you very much. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, you're audible. Thank you.
Ramadan Karim. It is my pleasure to be here, Your Excellency Federal Minister for Climate Change, Senator Sherry Rahman, Your Excellency Federal Minister for Commerce, Said Navid Kamar, and Your Excellency Special Assistant to Prime Minister, Ms. Romina Khurshid. Also, Dr. Suleri, I welcome your remarks, very, very interesting. It is my pleasure to be here in this dialogue on exploring the potential of circular economy in Pakistan. Very pleased to be here on behalf of UNEP, and we want to welcome you all and thanking you also for co-organizing this event. I'm going to be brief and allow me just to give some special key remarks. And starting to say, what is circular economy and why does it matter? In recent years, we have seen that there is an increasing interest in the concept of circular economy. It has been seen as a very important solution to many of the environmental challenges, and I will say also the economic challenges that we are facing. So circular economy is an important vehicle for this economic transformation that we need, and I will say economic and social transformation. And it can also bring key solutions for the triple planetary crisis that we are facing: climate change, biodiversity loss, and the increasing levels of pollution. I also heard the triple C crisis, so I think this also can contribute to that. I also happy to hear that, yeah, the concept of circular economy is not new, but is something that is requiring us to move away from this current linear economic model of extracting, take, make, and waste to more circular one, and learning from nature, where there is not pollution, where every resource is transformed and is reused. So what we say in UNEP, that circular economy is an alternative model that seeks to, what we are looking is decoupling economic growth or economic activities from the use of our finite resources. So how can we be more resource efficient? How can we increase the efficiency of our economy and reduce environmental impact, so that our economy is within the planetary boundaries? So it is not just about waste management or recycling. Circular economy is about systemic change, cross-sectoral solutions. Interministerial cooperation is essential because it is not only about environment, it's about economic transformation, it's about equity. So it's about also engaging the private sector. I'm so happy to hear that in the room we have private sector also engaged here. So it requires this systemic change. And let me highlight three key principles of circular economy. And the first one is we need to start thinking about eliminating waste and pollution by design. It's since the very beginning. It's not end of the pipe. It's really how can we rethink the products, the services that we need, and recreate or design them in a different way. How can we create production systems and consumption systems that can circulate products and materials, keeping the highest value, you know, when they are circulating in the different cycles. And third principle, very important, and we should not forget, it is about also regenerating this ecosystem, regenerating nature. So it has to contribute in the crisis of biodiversity. And of course, it can be seen if we are reducing the extraction of natural resources, then we are allowing this regeneration of nature. So these are the three principles that I want to highlight here. We have several studies that are highlighting the economic and social benefits of circular economy. Let me just highlight some studies. One from McKinsey is saying that if we bring circular economy in key sectors like mobility, food, and built environment, we can reduce by 48% the greenhouse emission by 2030. And we could actually even reduce greenhouse emission by 85% by 2050. So the gains and the potential for this is big and is significant. This is at the global level. And also we know by our colleagues in ILO, International Labour Organization, the great potential that circular economy is also providing in jobs creation. And this is very important for our economies. So studies are saying, for example, that globally, if we start looking at innovation in the business sector, we can generate around 24 million jobs that could be direct to young people and can contribute to this transition. So with this, I just want to say that this integrated, it's an approach that is bringing economic, social, and environmental impacts. So how is this for Pakistan? And I will be very happy to hear and learn more from you. But what we want to highlight here is, in Pakistan, the circular economy could help in protecting the environment, in the economic transformation, and also in climate mitigation and adaptation. Sadly, we know that Pakistan is among the 10 countries most affected by climate change. We have seen the tragic effects last year. So circular economy could contribute in climate mitigation and also in building resilience. For example, that's something we wanted to highlight. Another thing, and I'm happy to know that we have here the private sector looking at packaging. For example, there are many benefits that we can bring in the waste generation in plastics and, for example, e-waste. Just to give some figures, in Pakistan, we know that every year we are generating 3.3 million tons of plastic that end up either in the landfills, if we are lucky, otherwise in the rivers or in the mountains, in the ecosystem. So can we bring some solutions like eco-design, extended producer responsibility, innovation, and also behavior change? That is very important. So what are those practices of circular economy that we need to bring in the plastic so that we can phase them up or make it more circular? Equally for e-waste, we know that the generation in 2019 in Pakistan was around 433 kilotons of e-waste. How can we really start looking at remanufacturing, repairing? Can we also have more global standards that are really banning this obsolescence, program obsolescence? Can we start looking at other methods of recycling? So what are these policies that we will need? What will be the incentives of private sector also to start making the digital technologies more circular? So in this, we have some best practices that we can share with you. And another key sector is agriculture. Pakistan being having agriculture as a key economic driver. For example, we know that if you will be using the biogas, just the waste of buffaloes and other cattle, we can have a gain of 260 billion Pakistani rupees that could be redirected in energy generation. So just wanted to highlight key sectors that are there. Now, how can we contribute? I'm very happy to say that here in UNEP, we are working a lot on enhancing circularity and working in high impact sectors. As I mentioned, some of them is in the agriculture, in plastics, in textiles, and in building and construction. And last year, together with the International Labour Organization and with UNICEF and UNEP, we have launched the Green Jobs for Youth Pact. What we want to do with this is to support countries in these transitions to sustainability, to climate resilience, and explore the potential of circular economy in job generation. Look at what are the gap analysis, the gap skills, what are the new skills that are needed, and most importantly, how can we equip our young generations with the necessary skills so that we can transit rapidly to a circular economy. So I'm really happy to hear now that you are planning to do the circular economy network in Pakistan. I'm happy also to hear that you are doing this gap analysis. We will be very happy to support these efforts and offer the tools that with the Green Jobs Pact, the three institutions we are willing to support in capacity development, in dialogue with private sector, and then also in partnership with universities, but also technical skills so that we can work more on the necessarily green skills. To this, I just want to close again. I'm really happy to see that today we will be listening to three key aspects: the need of circular economy transition in Pakistan, the green jobs for an inclusive circular economy, and also how the circular economy looks in the packaging industry. So I'm very happy to hear that. And again, want to highlight our interest in supporting these efforts. Last thing, we know that the transition to circular economy is not going to happen overnight. It's a long process that requires cooperation, multi-stakeholder engagement, and also champions. So I'm very pleased also to hear that Pakistan wants to be the champion in circular economy. We need a lot of champions, and if you can bring this voice to the next COP, it will be also very important to raise more awareness and bring more champions to this transformation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Adriana, for highlighting the UNEP's work on circular economy. And we are glad to have partnered with UNEP for this special dialogue on circular economy transition in Pakistan. Without further ado, I would like to request the guest of honor, Senator Sherry Rahman, the Honorable Federal Minister for Climate Change, for her keynote address. Please, ma'am, join us at the podium. Thank you. Ma'am, please, if you can join us at the dais.
Good evening. Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Abid Suleri, SDPI's entire team, Andrea Zakaris, the global coordinator for UNEP, Kuno Tosby, UNDP, other friends from the World Bank and the private sector, civil society, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for convening this SDPI and for connecting us all together on a very important issue that is of critical timing, really, for Pakistan, with the levels of plastic and waste mismanagement that was mentioned earlier. So I'm honored to be here today, but as you all know, Pakistan is one of the 10 most vulnerable economies to climate change. I suspect after last year's catastrophic floods, we are certainly among the top 5, if not higher ranking of vulnerability. I say this because it takes a while to measure who is hit worse, but 33 million is a number in terms of impacts that we have never seen, at least in this century or any other, from the impacts of climate change. So basically that tells us more than one thing. It tells us that we need to take all the lessons learned very seriously, but also build capacity and look for resources, both technical and otherwise, that will assist us in this polycrisis of the 21st century. And there is obviously a polycrisis in many areas, but looking at the social disruption and large-scale reversals caused to development and the impacts on poverty, on gender, on all vulnerability, on all vectors of vulnerability, this is a pivotal moment. Yet there is little attention paid to the circularity of the economy or working towards sustainability and trying to understand how the challenges we face need to be, rethought as part of a current, outside the current linear economic model. So how we extract resources, how we use them to make products and then dispose of them after they're no longer useful needs to be part of a larger public conversation. This is, again, a group that already knows a lot about the circular economy, the need for it, our capacities for it. And I think the broader challenge is in, as I said, a moment of pivotal polycrisis, engaging all of Pakistan's big public stakeholders, which is also communities, in how waste is disposed and managed. Because right now, communities are left out of that conversation. It is just considered a municipal only responsibility. And that, as we know, in South Asian economies with very large populations and low governance poses a real challenge. So if really you're going to look at the circularity of the economy in any holistic manner, not just the private sector, but communities will have to be engaged in how this goes forward. Without public acceptance and engagement in the process or even understanding of it, we will not go further. So I'm really glad that SDPI is looking at a report because the data in the field is always variable. Knowledge on climate change as it is comes mostly from external sources. Pakistan has been looking at the science, but our capacities are limited. So here we are with a situation where we have had a large scale of human suffering and have had key sectors like agriculture, industries, including textiles, infrastructure, and tourism, but most importantly, water resources completely destabilized and going into more than seasonal scarcity to pose, I would suggest, serious and critical and even structural challenges to Pakistan's economy as well as public well-being. Now, when you look at how we can look at circular economy and its challenges, look, it's not terribly complicated, but in talking about it, but when you get down to actually working out how waste is managed, how districts, provinces, and communities tackle this as a real problem, then policy frameworks from Islamabad become very difficult to even implement, let alone put forward. What we have done at the Ministry of Climate Change is this year done at least two things, and we're in the process of another, which is looking at how circularity can reduce our reliance on fossil fuels, minimize greenhouse gas emissions, and of course, increase energy efficiency. We are also looking at critical areas of waste reduction because we have a large ocean-based coastline, and we have a river system that is actually the lifeline of Pakistan's agrarian and even other economy. That river system is, of course, the Indus River. It is literally a lifeline for 80% of, directly or indirectly Pakistan's population. And we have to start thinking on the lines of making transitions that involve and engage communities as well as our great resources that are now actually should be part of the circular economy, but are really part of a large waste disposal, unmanaged waste disposal system. So we have launched, the ministry has launched the Living Indus initiative, which many of you know about, many do not, with the assistance of the UN. And it is closely linked with the circular economy principles because it aims to restore the ecosystem services of the Indus River Basin through sustainable practices. And we have provided a living menu of 25 options in where companies, countries, multinationals, and even communities can collectively or individually engage. It has taken a backseat because it was conceived just before the Great Flood hit us. And what we saw was all our resources for every project repurposed into frontline life-saving protocols. And for instance, it went into the Benazir income support program, the cash that was needed to just keep families afloat on the ground. So many of our resources then, when a country is facing this level of risk and challenge, and its economy faces multiple exogenous shock, which it is still reeling from, and people don't really discuss how the flood has impacted Pakistan's economy. We are where we are not just because of debt management, but also because one after another, our agriculture and climate impacts have derailed not just GDP, but ability of communities, provinces, and the entire country to be a clear, productive, innovative economy. And that's been a very clear setback. Climate change impacts 9.1% of Pakistan's GDP. This is even without the flood. This is just across the level vulnerability, which is not talked about nor accounted. These are slow onset changes, and they have very little acceptance in quick fix conversations, or even where band-aids are constantly needed. And since the injury is often so great due to climate change and the risk it poses and the shocks it causes, the band-aid approach continues as a frontline. Obviously, you have to save lives first. So as we move towards the circular economy, waste has become, and waste is a big issue. Now, if you even went through the flood and went through riverine areas and districts and even delta areas that were impacted, the waste was just bubbling out. In areas that were drying up, waste became a great graveyard of the whole area's consumption, of the region's consumption, the district's consumption. So Pakistan's consumption was on its street in every way, direct and indirect. And it was lying there as waste, unprocessed, unmanaged. And the flood actually exacerbated it. No one has really talked about that, but I've seen it with my own eyes. Many cities, well, some are ancient cities, but they don't still have a viable waste management system, simply because they are looking for capacity and expertise. And interveners come in, it's just not glamorous enough to focus on. So projects go to small, what I call small gestation and small area, little models which then get ticked off in boxes. Large scale interventions then don't happen. So the pilots come down, everybody is happy, 2 districts have done a pilot. That does not change the game on the ground at all. That's been the model in Pakistan. And that's how a lot of our friends have intervened as well. Okay, we've done this, we've done a study, we've looked at climate resilient agriculture, for instance, in one area, or we've looked at how plastics impacts the economy, but no one has provided ever low-cost alternatives for the actual end users and consumers, the vulnerable, the communities that use, say, the biggest scourge on our waste is plastics. It was discussed, 3.3 million every year. Now it finds its way to landfills, and it's strewn across water bodies, other land bodies. You see it everywhere. It is going straight into your oceans. And our new hazardous waste management policy deals with this. But right now, that's just dealing with toxic waste being dumped on our shores from other countries. So when countries start to recycle, hazardous waste is also part of it. And it has to be extracted, it has to be taken out. So waste is then used in creative ways and cost-effective ways to build as factors in many industries. The steel, the metal, the cement, they all are using products from recycling. Pakistan has huge informal recycling sectors, especially in Karachi. They will never enter my notes. but I'm speaking to you from experience. So while the jugaad economies of South Asia have their own inbuilt, now jugaad means making do or fixing something or creating, reinventing products from old ones. It is actually a good thing. It is not dumping all our consumption for one single use. It is endlessly putting products into a life cycle that extends its life. So this won't be discussed, but it should be, because the informal economy of circularity is huge. It has its own problems, and it is also a big emitter. Methane is emitted from many landfills, and it must be factored in. Again, it's a new conversation. It's not a convenient one, so you won't find it most places, but it must be brought into the public conversation. And here's what I'm doing now after the National Hazardous Waste Management Policy. What we've done is that when the provinces are now importing material that is used in recycling industries, we are not the licensed Raj that we once were. A licensed Raj means a ministry that is giving NOCs for bringing that in. No, we are not doing that until now. The actual province where the dry port is verifying the environmental agency, protection agency of that province, as well as the chief secretary of that province tells us, we have no ability to go and see what's happening, say, if a ship lands in Sindh on one, or there's some importing happening in KP. Absolutely not. We're not inspectors. So the new policy suggests that the provinces inform us that the refill, what is coming in terms of waste for recycling in many of our industries, aluminium particularly, is clean. It has been sorted, and it will be recycled effectively, and the rest will be sent back. We don't provide the NOC. So we are now a post office. We are no longer a licensed Raj. The buck may stop here, but it has to go through various stages of scrutiny and transparency, which was absolutely missing. And that leads to vast gateways of corruption and just waste coming in without any audit or accountability. That has stopped. Now, to address what I call the plastics challenge, I've been in this ministry 11 months. And the first thing I asked for was a plastics policy. Even if we cannot make a new series of regulations, the challenge is in getting the producers on board. First of all, there was no capacity or interest in providing data. All the big producers, and I'm mainly talking of plastic containers, which will eventually have to go into a journey at least to start. Now, no country is doing 100% recycling. They need higher viscosity of their plastic to actually do that. And the information on that is very sketchy. Many countries have started. We are nowhere close to that, but that journey has to begin. Nobody knew where to start the intervention, where to begin a cascade. Now, I can say tomorrow that for ICT, I'm banning this, that, and the other. I'm banning food containers. I'm banning plastic forks and the bottles you're drinking. Good that I don't see any today. That's probably because SDPI has said so. But I don't allow it in my offices or homes. And very soon government will also be getting that regulation. But I was waiting to finish the discussions with the producers. It's been 11 months. And I was not getting the data on how much is recyclable, how much is actually produced, where it goes. None of it was forthcoming until I had to put in a tweet a month or 2 months ago. I'm not at war with anybody. But if the government of Pakistan is asking you for data, you provide the data. This has to be done. If you're saying you're part of the solution and not the problem, and I absolutely believe that you are, then provide the data and understand that we will have to be part of a formal recycling journey, and that the heft will come, not from advertisements and small area launches, from step-by-step delinearity of this plastics economy. This has to stop. This skidding away by both government and producers has to stop. There is nothing that we provide the poor and vulnerable of this country as a cost-effective option. But I mean, 20 years ago, the whole of Pakistan was boiling its water the hard way and putting it in bottles, glass bottles, and carrying it around in glass bottles. We were doing it. And I don't mean to take you back to the dark ages, but the dark ages are when your oceans are filled with more plastic than fish, which is 2050. And when the waste Pakistan generates, just the plastic, is enough for 2 K2 mountains. Clump it together, the 3.3 million, clump it together, it will make 2 mountains, the second highest in the world. K2 is the second highest mountain in the world. You will have 2 fantastic peaks. I wouldn't call it an art installation. It will be just that. So we are one of the highest plastic waste mismanagers, and that has got to change. It is not only the government's responsibility, but it is certainly my responsibility to tell you that you're going to have to change your ways. You will have to provide the transparency and build in the journeys for beginning the recycling. And I believe this week is what I had given my ministry to engage with you. Oh, it's Ramzan. I said, no, it has to be this week, because the last consultation that came to me was with high commitments from all the big plastic producers. Good, happy for that. But I did not get any daylight on when the recycling journey will begin. Will it be 30% in 5 years? Will it be 50%? How are you going to be collecting them? What will you be doing for public messaging? You are big multinationals, you have the resources, you're doing it in other countries. So you will have to do it in this one too. That has to happen. It will happen in less than a month. And please make your commitments as responsible citizens and responsible communities, as well as responsible producers. The extender producer responsibility chain has to be operational. It really has not in Pakistan. It's just been talk. I will not put out a policy that says, oh, we ban polythene bags in ICT. You heard about that. They're still going around, aren't they? No, I want a policy that works. It may take time. It may be part of a journey, but it's got to be one that engages producers, users, everybody. And it's got to work for the producers too. It's got to work for all those that are producing this plastic. It's got to be viable. And I'm happy to be in a conversation where there are incentives, but nor do I want to risk, put to risk anybody's investment in Pakistan. We are hardly in a position to disincentivize investment in Pakistan. That is certainly not the point. The point is to responsibly engage all the producers and make it very clear that just because we are so overwhelmed by the sheer amounts of plastic being produced and the inability to intervene, that intervention won't happen. It has to happen, and it has to happen as a joint operation. It will happen if I believe that all the producers will be online. It's not for consumers, but consumers have to be involved. And the behavior change that is needed for that will come from us jointly. We will be able to mount campaigns and suggest this is how you give back, because everything has a beginning. It will not be perfect. It will not be complete. Most countries are not able to do that. If you actually start looking at the data and disaggregating it, you will find even the best recyclers are not fully able to do it. That's what we have found. So that does not mean that if we can't do 100%, we don't begin the journey, we don't start making commitments to each other, and we don't invest in our future. So that's what's happening at the ministry this week and the next. This whole extended producer responsibility and plastic regulations will come in for ICT and the government of Pakistan as a user to start with. That will involve hotels, everybody. And for recycling, we will begin the journey with the producers. I understand that the big plants are all in the provinces, not in Islamabad, capital territory. But as federal government, I have to begin this. And I have to ask you to ensure that where your plants are the biggest and where your distribution is the highest, you make this happen. That is how it works everywhere in the world. It is not governments that are emitters. It is big business everywhere in the world. whether it's fossil fuels or the non-linearity of the economy. So let's be very clear. I want everyone in on the conversation. We want us, even at COP27 and 28 and all the COPs, big business is out there making pledges. They're outside the negotiation tent because UNFCCC only deals with governments. But I believe that it is now time to, I honestly think it's time to change the conversation. We have to work together. Otherwise, we will keep talking about deliverables that we don't achieve, which we don't at any of the COPs. All the funds created in the world have not made their way to the countries that need them. All the promises and pledges made have not found their way even to the funds that were created to fuel them. So it's time to involve the businesses that do the emissions. It's not countries. We're all a sum of our parts, and it has to be a different conversation. I don't know if the world's ready for it. I'm even suggesting that the IFIs change their Bretton Woods model. It's just not ready for the 21st century challenges. It was created for another century and another set of post-war challenges. That's all over now, even though conflict has returned to the heart of Europe and brought back 20th century problems, supply chain issues, to augment our very own now. So I'm going to conclude, and I look forward to, I really want to thank SDPI for doing this. I've come out of Parliament, I've got to run back. We have a lot going on, but this is important to us. And I really appreciate that the SDPI and the UNEP has organized this important dialogue. I do also appreciate all stakeholders for coming in to our talks and being part of the solution. I understand it's painful, but all change is, and we have to adapt together. Otherwise, literally, there will be no consumers for your products as well. You know this. So let's do what we can together. Let's build our partnership and collaborations for building a more circular and sustainable economy. And thank you very much for the patience. I know I overspoke, but and it's rude to leave. But it's an egregious couple of days that we have to take stuff through Parliament. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for such an insightful keynote address and for highlighting the need and showing that the government is actually interested in the transition to circular economy. And also because we are working on the agenda of leaving no one behind. So the collaborations and partnerships is the key towards achieving circularity in Pakistan. With this, I would now like to request the panelist for the session 1, that is the need for circular economy, Dr. Knut Osby, from the UNDP Pakistan. I would request you to share your remarks on the session and the dialogue.
And while the minister is leaving, thank you so much for your inspiring statement and leadership. Senior officials, SDPI colleagues, private sector representatives, NGO representatives, colleagues, representatives from member states, I'm honored to be able to say a few words today, although I cannot promise to be as inspiring as the minister was. I will do my best to share at least a few thoughts. These development challenges today are becoming increasingly interlinked and complex, and as the minister already said, we cannot think only in linear development anymore. We will not achieve the changes we're looking for. We need to rethink how we do development with the environment and not at the cost of the environment. Currently, we take materials, we produce something, and then throw them away. But it's pretty obvious when you think about it that this cannot last. We do need to think about a circular economy where we can stop some of the production being necessary in the first place, or where we can reuse, recycle, and keep things basically sustainable. In a circular economy, we would be able to reuse a lot of what we produce, and this has a lot of benefits, which I'll get back to in a second. I think it was mentioned by both previous speakers that Pakistan has one of the highest percentages of mismanaged plastic waste in South Asia, and there is only with that there would be a great potential implementing a circular economy model in Pakistan, and you can get all kinds of benefits from this: economic, environmental, social. It can create a new economic opportunities by turning waste into a resource. Recycled materials, as you all know, can be used in manufacturing, reused in different other contexts, reducing the cost of raw materials. The consumers can benefit from cheaper products. Companies can save money for inputs. There are environmental benefits from reusing, upcycling, recycling. We can reduce greenhouse gas emissions, decrease the amount of waste that ends up in landfills, and conserve natural resources. There are social benefits. There can be job creation, community development based on a circular economy, on a waste-based circular economy. And the sale of recycled goods can support local businesses. Circular economy practices do require new thinking, innovation, new technologies, and we do need to invest in new research, development, creating new ways to reduce waste and reuse materials, and this will also benefit the economy and the environment. But there are barriers and there are challenges. There are budget constraints that prevent both public and private entities from making the necessary investments for change. There is a lack of coordination. The minister talked about various pilot initiatives that were just started up doing something locally and never scaled up. There are many good initiatives around, but if they can be brought better together, we will have a better impact. There's also a challenge of access to expertise. Sometimes the will is there, but the access to knowledge is not there, and that needs to be addressed. And there are regulatory barriers that some regulations might hinder some of these new ideas to come forward. For example, if laws and regulations prioritize the use of virgin materials instead of recycled materials. But there is a very important new dimension, and I think I'm very glad that we have representatives from the private sector here, because I think they will be key in, or you will be key in driving the new steps forward, driving the new innovations that has to take place. The private sector can create new business models focusing on recycled and repurposed materials in the production processes. Some are doing it already. Private companies can develop circular supply chains, which involve the recovery and reuse of materials from products that have reached the end of the life cycle. The private sector can invest in developing new technologies and infrastructure that support the circular economy, such as waste to energy facilities, recycling plants, material recovery facilities. And there is also great potential creating new demand for products made from recycled materials, and based on awareness among consumers. And we already see a lot of this, but we could see a lot more. And private sectors can collaborate, and I think the minister touched upon that very much, with the public sector to promote the right policies and encourage the right investments. On the UNDP side, we have been doing some work on this. One example is that we worked together with Unilever in Rahim Yar Khan city, where we tested some innovative solutions to make Rahim Yar Khan a zero plastic waste city. The job is not finished yet, but we went some way on this, conducting studies to propose the right measures to go forward, building capacity of designers, manufacturers, communities, and producers to help design circular products and raising awareness among consumers to support the plastic life cycle. And under other projects, we have provided support to the government of Gilgit-Baltistan and Balochistan to develop green business centers, working on development of green skills. In Islamabad, we have helped pilot some recycling products made from recycled materials. In our Green Jobs Initiative for Youth, we worked in Sindh and Balochistan for programs on internships, plantation drives, clean and green job challenges, etc. The minister mentioned the Living Indus initiative. One of the 25 areas of work in there is to make at least 10 cities of Pakistan zero plastic waste cities. And we in UDP want to engage and support this initiative based on our experiences from the Rahim Yar Khan initiative. To achieve this circular economy in Pakistan, we need action from everybody. We need collaboration between stakeholders. We need businesses, the government, and the communities, as well as external partners to come together. If we do adopt, or when we adopt circular economy practices, we will reduce our environmental impact and will create a sustainable future for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khandour. With this, I would like to request our speakers. We have Mr. Christopher Warner, Senior Environmental Specialist from World Bank. We have also been joined by Mr. Charles Schneider, Program Manager, IFC Pakistan, Ms. Maria Anna Petrera, Head of Green Growth and Sustainability, Denmark Embassy, Mr. Amir Ibrahim, CEO, JES Pakistan. We have been joined by the Senior Director Supply Chain, Mr. Syed Kazmi from PepsiCo Pakistan, and Mr. Tayyib Ijaz from Roshan Packages. He's the CEO at Roshan Packages Limited. So I would now like to request first Mr. Christopher from World Bank to share his remarks, and I would also request the panelists to please, if they can keep it a bit brief, because we are going a bit over time, and so that we can also give the opportunity to the roundtable discussants to share their views on different questions that we'll be asking later. So Charles, over to you.
Thanks very much, ladies, gentlemen, honorable guests. It's indeed a pleasure to be here from the World Bank team to talk about circular economy and resource efficiency. Let's say resource efficiency and circular economy. Just an opening remark about this. If we think of the size of Pakistan's population now and the size of the economy, and that it is a country which is becoming more middle income, where will we be in 50 years' time in terms of the resource inputs which are needed to drive this economy? And where will we be on pollution, the outputs? And so I think, when we look at the issue of RECP in this context, it's an absolute necessity to get on top of it. Now, part of the good thing is that when we look at economic growth and development, and we've had a look at Pakistan, where it is on this continuum, that decoupling of economic growth and development from material input is indeed starting to happen. But unfortunately, it's taking place at a slower rate than competitive countries in the region. And so there is indeed an opportunity and an imperative for Pakistan to catch up with the rest of the region, not just because of local demands which are being made on resource inputs and the pollution bubble, but because exporters or importers rather are demanding it as well. And I'm sure we'll hear more about that from colleagues. But basically, the context for RECP, I just want to make two sets of 5 points. One is that pricing, there really needs to be better pricing on resource inputs. Pricing drives the use of resource inputs, as does a price on pollution. There isn't a price on pollution at present. So these two pricing signals are essential. The second is that when we look at what's happened in the rest of the world, regulation, and the minister referred to it as well, regulation is needed, and regulation is really important to also drive things in the right direction. And that can, of course, be coupled with compacts as well, creating compacts with business to drive things in the right direction. Technology and financing. The correct technology solutions absolutely have to be put on the table, and the right financing and incentive packages as well to drive change forward. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about what we're seeing happening in Punjab province. In Punjab, the World Bank has an active program through a Punjab Green Development Program with two goals. And the reason that we're working closely with Punjab is because of its economic importance in Pakistan. But in brief, there are two things which we're supporting Punjab to drive forward. The one is strengthening environmental governance and indeed the greening of industry. And under that, I'd like to just tell you a few key actions which Punjab province is taking. The first is they're establishing a $50 million Environment Endowment Fund. And that is to help drive the greening of industry and development forward in the province. And as I say, it's an endowment fund. It's not a sinking fund. Now that in and of itself is enormously important, but it really needs to be twinned up with commercial bank financing and green investment as well. $50 million is not enough. If we look at air pollution in Punjab alone, our estimates are that it requires about $1 billion of investment per year over the next couple of years. The public sector can probably put in $50 million. That other $900 million is going to have to come out of regulatory approaches. It's going to come out of the right pricing approaches. And ultimately, it's going to come out of private sector investment. This is where it's going to have to come from. The other initiative which Punjab province is taking is that it's identified 5 key industrial sectors which are ripe for introducing RECP technologies. It's identified the sorts of technology solutions, some of the financing solutions which are needed, and some of the and actually today, I believe, and in the coming week, 1 or 2 of the banks will be effectively opening up and advertising that they're open for financing in these key industrial sectors to help to green them. It's also going to be, there's also a focus on greening of micro enterprises. And then lastly, industrial parks. Industrial parks are important. They've played an enormously important role in places like China, Malaysia, Korea, and in Punjab, we're seeing a Sialkot industrial zone being developed and opened up for the leather industry. And that's particularly important because many of you would know that the leather industry is a very significant polluter, but it's also very important to Pakistan's exports. And so establishing industrial zones which are going to support export-led growth is important for Pakistan. Lastly, 2 important policies which are about to be approved as well on air pollution, as well as indeed plastic strategy, that Punjab is taking a lead on preparing a plastic strategy and a regulation on single-use plastics. And so I leave you with these messages of hope. Let's think about the theory, let's think about the principles, but let's now start actioning these key issues at a provincial level as well as at a federal level where possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christopher. Now I would request Mr. Charles Schneider, if you can please share your remarks for the dialogue. Thank you.
Thanks very much for the opportunity to speak today. So I'm from IFC, International Finance Corporation, which is also part of the World Bank Group, but it's the private sector arm. So our financing goes rather than going to government, we focus on private sector financing. And I think maybe some of you in this room are partners of ours. So it's good to see you. I'd like to pick up on Chris' message of hope because clearly it's there. We see this globally around circular economy. IFC globally has invested already in this space, upwards of $1 billion US globally. I think most of that focus has been around recycling to this date. And I think I'd like to pick up on UNEP's message earlier that this is not just about recycling. I think we probably put a lot of emphasis on that, but circular economy means many things, and reuse and refurbishment, repair. There's many other, and just designing circularity into products. So that's hopefully where we're going in this circularity discussion. So IFC itself, we're looking to make investments in circular economy opportunities in the country. We see them happening. PepsiCo was just mentioned. Lucky enough to attend the launch of the first plastic recycled bottles in the country a couple of months ago. That's a great initiative. And I think, we've looked at plastic circularity as investment opportunity specifically. And now we have a internal study going on to seek opportunities in other areas. And just a couple of sectors that are starting to stand out as having opportunity are in the battery space, fashion, and we know of businesses, viable businesses now happening that are actually taking used clothing from around the world, refurbishing, not just for Pakistan market, for regional markets, and reusing fabric. And we know companies here who are reusing jean fabric. You know who you are, and you're doing a great job of that. So that's happening already. E-waste is another space, construction materials and wastewater. Now, I think the big challenge for many of us, and I think this comes out, is that we heard that this is there's a lot of informality in recycling, reuse. I just had my 15-year-old HP printer repaired here, unbelievably. I don't know where they found the parts for it, but it was an amazing thing to happen. And I'm sure this could be, this is happening everywhere, but it's small business. So how do we channel real, money into these businesses? And it's probably not IFC who can directly do that. But I think it's where we can, the fund that was mentioned by Chris, but also, the financial sector can play a big role. And this is where we hope to also participate in creating maybe small scale financing schemes for the more informal sector to make the e-waste recycling more environmentally friendly, more efficient. We know that from e-waste reuse and recycling here that a lot of what could be reused is not, because of the way it's done. It's not done effectively. So there's a lot of waste in the waste recycling. So we need, this is where small scale finance could play a big role. So I would encourage, government and all stakeholders to seek these types of private sector solutions to the problem. And if you want good examples, I encourage you also to check out the Ellen MacArthur Foundation website, because again, I think what we see a lot globally is that startups, venture capital, all that is getting involved in circularity. That may not work here. We're not quite at that stage here. And much of this is happening in Europe, North America. But the examples of business models that you can see, that's where the important lessons are learned, is what is the business model for circularity? And if it can be achieved, then it's a sustainable business model. And it is happening. And I think PepsiCo can tell you more about how it's happening for them here. And it's something we're going to be looking at a lot more in our investments. So thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Sir Charles. And now I would like to request Ms. Mariana Petrera for her remarks.
Try to be brief and limit myself to saying that Denmark is very eager to support the circular future in Pakistan, sharing our experiences and learnings, and see how that can be used and implemented here to foster a development in the circular economy of Pakistan. Just from the perspective we are coming in Denmark as a highly developed economy and most waste producing countries in the world, among other countries in Europe and other places, we of course produce a lot of waste. 12.7 million tons a couple of years ago in 2019, with a population of 5.8 million inhabitants, so less than 6 million people. So we also have a job to do. Construction is a major contributor to waste production in Denmark, 40%. I'm not going to talk about that. I guess that could also be an area where the percentages are high in Pakistan, and where we all need to find solutions to how to increase circularity in the construction and building sector in all our countries. So there is plenty of opportunity to work together. In Denmark, of all the waste we produce, 44% goes to reuse, another 25% goes to other types of use, so other types of reuse. We burn 29% of our waste. We have a cold climate, so we can use it to produce heat, and that has been a success story for many years in Denmark. We cannot, even if the greenhouse gas emissions of that burning incineration is not that high, we cannot continue to do that. So we are indeed also, as a country, looking of ways to increase reuse and circularity in our waste sector. Only 3% goes to deposit in landfills in Denmark. So some of the things we are looking into and where we're developing solution is focusing on how to make consumers and citizens separate waste so much more can be recycled and reused. And on the company side, strengthening supervision and legislation on how the separation of waste should be in the private sector and with companies. And ensuring that based on a risk and impact-based approach. So looking at where are the risk the greatest for things not happening properly and focusing on that area, and allowing the bill for that control to go to those who pollute and don't follow the rules to an increasing degree, and not necessarily placing the bill for that job with the public sector and the taxpayers. So just as a last comment, a little bit of inspiration. It's not replicable necessarily completely to Pakistan, but in Denmark we have a quite efficient return and deposit system for bottles and cans, which is a no-cost system in the sense for those in the circular business of this return and recycling of bottles and cans. There is practically no cost. We have reached pretty much full circularity in this business with a 93-94% of return of this disposable bottles and cans, which you also you can call packaging. So in Denmark, we have a system with a privately owned non-profit organization, the Danish Deposit and Return System, who has the mandate on behalf of business in the industry and with a license from the government to collect all empty disposable bottles and cans, be it plastic, glass, and metal, aluminium, from producers and users, and to recycle that into those used material into new packaging. It works in a way that has a closed, you can say, money loop, where the producers charge consumers, of course, the price of the soft drink or the beer in Denmark, and an additional deposit that is for the actual packaging, the bottle. When the consumers return that bottle to any place in Denmark, supermarket, kiosk, whatever, they get that money back in return for delivering the bottle. That creates a money flow that is quite efficient. it creates an incentive on behalf of the consumer to deliver the bottles back in a condition where you actually get, so not squashed and ruined, but in a condition where they actually can be reused. And it creates also an incentive in business to enter into that system, because it also allows for the business to be able to buy those recyclable products and re-enter them into their production of new bottles, whether it be glass, plastic, and aluminium cans. And they don't have the headache of trying to sort out how they're going to deal with the waste they create in the society as a business. So there has been a very close collaboration in the society among regulators, among business and consumer associations in how to create a system that's efficient and that has incentives for all the partners. So that's just a little story of how that can be done. And you can take from it whatever you can use and discard the rest. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I now request Mr. Ahmed Ibrahim, CEO Jazz Pakistan, to share his remarks. And I would request, sir, if you can keep it within 3 to 4 minute bracket. Thank you.
Thank you. Loud and clear. I'll keep it to only 3 points since I may be an unusual invitee over here. But I think Dr. Rahman did mention that it's the companies, not the countries. So I'm representing a company's perspective. And I run a telecom company, which may not be an obvious contributor to the problems that we've been talking about today. But I think the 2 or 3 points that I want to make is that it's the tone at the top. Everybody's got to have the skin in the game. We're either victims or we are perpetrators of the problem that we're trying to solve. And in many cases, we are both, but we know it not. So the tone at the top really refers to the consciousness that we must exhibit in running our companies and trying to see what can we do, either within the organization or in the products and the services that we make. Point number 2, let's look at telecom. Telecom, looks relatively innocuous. We've been there when there was COVID, when there are floods. We are generally part of the solution, but we also do damage the environment by our towers. We have about 15,000 factories. They require electricity. When the electricity goes away, they need batteries. And when the battery dies, then they need diesel and fuel. So in a way, we are contributing to a problem also. Therefore, we have made a pledge to go net zero by 2050. And these are the consciousness and the elements around leadership that I think must be exhibited not only by telecom companies, but by every single company and by every single leader. Like I said, every person needs to have a skin in the game. It's not a problem that somebody else is going to solve. So that was point number 2. And point number 3, just keeping it extremely brief, is technology. So while, yes, it's a telecom company that I run, it's also technology that we use in every single day. Most of you over here are aided by the smartphones who tell you how to navigate your way over here, when your next meeting is, how to get your information and entertainment. But we also can use a lot of technology in trying to redress, reduce, refuse all the elements that eventually cause the problems that we've been talking about. Again, very conscious that there are many other more competent voices that we have to hear today. So I'll leave it to them and get educated in the process. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ahmed Ibrahim. We have also been joined by representatives from Engro. They are online. Mr. Anik Ahmed, Vice President Supply Chain, would like to share the perspective from the industry on circular economy. So over to you, please.
Good evening, everybody. This is Anik Ahmed. I am representing Engro. So there was a question that was asked that how can industry promote that circular economy when they discuss their work with the suppliers and customers. So in my opinion, industry can definitely play a crucial role in bringing suppliers as well as customers in circular economy ambit. I believe 3 things that we can do to promote circular economy. First and foremost, we can leverage our working with global players and access to industrial leaders. We can bring their practices and concepts of circular economy in businesses here and share with our customers and suppliers. In similar manner, we can share our successes with them for implementation in their facilities. In many cases, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to enhance their awareness and replicate the best practices that would certainly help them progressing towards sustainable businesses. Secondly, as we all know, in developed countries, this thing is now condition of doing business, and industries only work or prefer to do business with suppliers who are actively working on circularity initiatives in their businesses. So same thing needs to be applied here in phases. We must encourage our stakeholders in adopting practices and upgrading themselves. So I can give you one example where our customers are demanding certain practices from our side, and against which they are giving edge us over others. Lastly, we need to show what is in it for them as far as suppliers and customers are concerned. I think when we work on circularity in our businesses, it brings sustainability and efficiency as major outcome. So we would also need to develop long-term partnership with suppliers and customers, where we must work on benefit sharing models through which they can self-sustain their initiatives. I would also suggest, to gain some confidence, we might even need to invest with them for certain initiatives. So now I would like to hear others. Obviously, it's a very interesting and insightful discussion that is happening, and it would definitely enhance our knowledge and will get a lot of benefit for our own organization as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Now we have PepsiCo representative, the Senior Director Supply Chain, Mr. Syed Kazmi. If you can share the perspective from the packaging industry side. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I think we're talking about the climate problem, and Bill Gates called it one of the biggest challenges that humanity will have to solve. And I'm thinking that, Abid Saab, you picked up one of the best times right before Iftar for us to solve this problem. But just that's on a lighter note. I'm going to keep it short. What I want to talk about is, one, we spoke about hope. And the reason we're hopeful, or I'm hopeful, is I just want to share a small example around plastics. Now, a year and a half ago, we didn't have any regulations on recycled plastics. I'm talking from a bottle perspective. We didn't have anyone who had a technology that could create or make recycled PET plastic, which is made for bottles, out of which we make bottles. And we didn't also have a value chain which could be incentivized to direct all of this towards a recycled bottle. Now, when everyone came together, so we worked through a core alliance where we had industry stakeholders with the regulators and with entrepreneurs. And when everyone comes together, within 6 months, we had a regulation in Pakistan which enabled rPET use. Within 1 year, we had an entrepreneur who was willing to invest in that technology. An industry where the demand was. Now, through that, within 12 months, we were able to launch 100% recycled bottle in Pakistan. So we have this bottle currently in Karachi. The reason it hasn't expanded is because we're working with the provincial regulators on how to make sure that we can scale this up. But the point I'm making is, when we come together and we try to solve the problem, we can accelerate the solution. But at the same time, there are a couple of challenges that we need to think about. Now, one is around affordability. When you talk about solves to climate problems, there's a green premium to most of those. Is the consumer willing to pay those premiums? How do we subsidize those? Why are we targeting subsidies to fossil fuels today? How do we solve this affordability problem? The second is, are regulations able to keep up with technology? Now, the solves on climate are technology driven, and they're moving at a very fast pace. Can regulators move at the same pace, which can allow people to experiment with those solutions? Now, these are two key challenges that we need to talk about and think about: affordability and regulations keeping pace with technology evolution. So thank you so much and looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you so much, sir. I also now request Mr. Tayyib Ijaz, who represents the packaging industry. He's the CEO at Roshan Packages Limited.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for organizing a very important event today. So I would like to introduce my company. It's Roshan Packages Limited. We are one of the leading provider of packaging material, not only in plastic and flexible packaging, but also in paper. So, and our story is only 2-3 minutes. I will take only 2-3 minutes. So we started with the fruit exports, and then the growers and exporters were using wooden crates. So a lot of, actually, we all know that we don't have forest, but I don't know how they were able to get wood out of it, but they were using wooden crates and exporting fruits and vegetables. And then realizing this issue, so we started corrugated packaging in Lahore. And Alhamdulillah, now most of the fruits are packed and exported and even distributed in Pakistan in corrugated boxes. So this is one example where the private sector is contributing, and that is possible. And yes, in start, it's difficult, as Kazmi Saab was telling, that there are challenges, and all our other participants and guests were saying that in beginning, there are challenges, but I'm confident that with collaboration and joint efforts, we can do a lot of things in circular economy. We are establishing 250,000 tons of recycling plant for paper. So we collect waste from stores and from municipalities like in Australia and New Zealand, in Denmark and Norway and in America. And we will use it in the principle of circular economy. And then we reuse and recycle and make new paper and then sell it again to Nestle and Coke and to all these companies. So there are a lot of potential, as Senator Sherry very well expressed her opinion, and the regulations are required. And we are with the, yes, so I would like to conclude it. Suraf Tari is here. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We still have a few minutes before Iftari, so I would like to directly move into the roundtable discussion session. So my first question would be we have representatives from the public and private sector. If we have Mr. Ali Jabbar, who's representing FPCCI. Sir, I would like to ask the question directly from you, and then I'll be moving on to the other discussants. How do you see the transition in circular economy, if it would support the Pakistan's status specifically in context of GSP Plus and the trade and the supply and value chain? So I would like to have your comment on that. And I'll again also request if you can keep it brief, please. Thank you. So you can use the mic if that's feasible.
Well, I think the word briefly, I was just thinking how much brief, to what extent I should be brief. So it reminds me of formula E is equal to mc square by Einstein. So I thought, could I trim it down to E is equal to mc square means 0, but it's not so. Anyway, so let me try to respond to your question. In fact, you are right. I represent FPCCI, and FPCCI represents small, medium, and large-scale industrial groups, 251 in numbers. So I think I'm consuming 10 seconds for that. And having said so, let me tell you one thing. To our research, we have a very big research group over there. To our position, as far as identified data bank is concerned, I should very comfortably say that 99.9% is a linear economy in this country, not the circular economy. Now, today we were discussing about the structuring of a circular economy model, but the problem is very simple. I think one lady talked about some millions of tons of plastic. So let me also tell you that when the China started you see, banning the export of waste paper. I was director in a very big, paper manufacturing company. So I learned that we are making money. So I said, how this time we made more money? They said, because China has stopped exporting the waste paper on which they were dependent 365 small units, they have closed. So we are making money. Now, having said so, on the plastic side, under import policy order, today also we can import plastic in this country. The China does not export you waste paper anymore. Now, what should be the opinion of private sector? We have been discussing all these things, but it is very good that SDPI has at least rolled out this concept for networking. I personally believe that having, you can say cluster of, I will take maybe 1.5 minutes. It's okay, no? Not more than that. So having my mind basically of an engineer, I'm a power system engineer, but a practicing economist. So, but I always give influence to my structure in talking about engineering more than the economy, because I think the mother of economy is engineering, you see. Now, the problem is that how we private sector should address this issue. The networking, as proposed, is an excellent idea. Let us follow it. For example, I will say that in simple, in simple words, input is equal to output. That is the absolute way of defining a circular economy with sustainability and not and sustainability. Having said so, in between comes always a factor which determines the efficiency. You have wastages. Now, some of the wastages in the circular system, can be directly, taken into the whole manufacturing cycle, but ultimately that also exhausts its value and it's no more can serve, for any retake and manufacturing. Now, let me say that I'm myself in the business.
Sir, I'm sorry, I have to cut you. We have a few more speakers, but we would be happy to have your comments.
Okay, 1 minute only.
Okay, sir.
Now, let me also appreciate of absentee minister. She is not here. She really talked about the real problems in the country. Now, on the political economy of power, you heard minister saying that methane is in the air. If the environment monitoring unit learns that Pakistan is throwing out 600 mmCFD methane every day in the air, probably we would be rated not 10th vulnerable. I think we must also improve our rating, Having said so, on the energy side, whatever are the wastages, I think the public sector also has to do a lot. And let me tell you comfortably that 70% correction has to come from the public sector, 30% from the private sector, if the deployment of resources in R&D and science and technology are made to re-engineer all this situation, which generates a circular economy model. Thank you, madam. I hope I've tried to satisfy your,
Thank you so much, sir, for the comment. I would now request Ma'am Romina, the Special Assistant to Prime Minister, for her remarks. And then if we have time, we'll be moving to our discussants. I hope we get some time, but if not, I apologize in advance, but we can share the views over the iftar dinner. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'll try myself to just keep it as short as I can, because already it has been said so much. And of course, there are so many important things which I've noted and I've learned as well. And it's all the learning from each other as we talk about the capacity building. But I believe the capacity building is, of course, very important. But the more important thing is to share the knowledge and learning from each other. A circular economy is an innovative approach to production and consumption that focuses on maximizing the value of resources and minimizing the waste. It is a sustainable model. Of course, we have discussed a lot over here. The aims to reduce environmental impact while promoting economic growth. The circular economy is in line with the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. So while particularly SDG 12, which aims to ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns. So as most of the people who are sitting over here, they knew that I'm the convener for the SDGs Task Force of the Parliament. So from the Parliament side, as you have heard the perspective of the government from the Madam Sherry Rahman, so I would just like to, in very little time, I'll try to focus and conclude in a way that, of course, over here, I have learned a lot that we all are talking about the green benefits, about the green jobs, about the green economy. Yes, we do have so many, a huge youth bulge as well. We have lots of people around, but more, I believe, as when we talk about the SDGs Task Force, I would really like to tell that we have the 4 task force in the provinces and 2 in the legislative assemblies like AJK and GB. And the pattern of the working is to connect with each other because after the 18th Amendment, of course, there are so many things which have been devolved to the provinces. So how we can communicate and how we can collaborate and how we can work. And same goes that how to engage, because whatever you're talking, that needs to have the implementation, and that implementation can be done through the local while we, of course, we can go to the localization and to engage the people from the grassroots level, and then how we can engage the people and to make them skilled. And before that, of course, as we have spoken over here about the resources, but I believe resources and then to make the people skilled and then the production, and recycling, but to make these things into, to bring them into one channel. That is also very much important, because as we talk about over here, lots of the corporate sector is here, and I'm glad to see them, because in our SDGs, we are trying to engage with the corporate sector, with the civil society, academia, media, and I'm glad that all the sectors are here today, and we believe that we need to engage with each other. Benefits are there, of course, because most of the people over here we have discussed, but that is one thing which is also very important, that the waste management which we are talking about, that is the massive issue right now. And how we can do the recycling of it, that's also again, but of course there are few companies or corporate sector who are here, but I would, because from the SDG sides, we are very soon, we are like we have already tried as well, and we are trying to engage the corporate sector, because for me, while talking about the SDGs, and I'm glad that Mr. Knuth is also here, like you and DP, who always claim to provide the great sources for the SDGs, but let's, I think it's more important to work and collaborate together. And the most of the corporate sector, they are doing great work in the SDGs as well, in the performing, like to achieve the goals as well. But mostly the work is scattered because we don't know who our next person who's sitting to us, what we are doing. So these sort of forums, while SDPI is always took a lead to do that, and I would believe and I would request that we need to work more. And one thing else, of course, we know that we are the victims as well. We do face so many challenges. But again, I would like to request that, we need to train our people. We need to give them the skill. And as we are going through with the great challenges of the climate change, the disasters which we are having, but these developing countries, by sitting and as I know that most of the UN organizations are listening, I would request that we need to focus on the issues, but we need to bring everyone on one forum, and the scattered word need to be together. And then, of course, when we talk about the challenges, as we are facing economical challenges, I believe that we don't need aid now. This countries, developing countries, needs to have the trade more. Of course, when we talk about the climate justice as well, but I think it's moreover we need to engage. And then I'm so thankful to Mr. Christopher, who gave a very good message of hope. So where there's a will, there is a way. And if we are talking about the hope, I think this hope, which we all are looking forward, we need to be together. And benefits are there, budget concerns, things when we talk about, I think when people sit together, the mechanism must be there. And of course, we cannot say that in one meeting, we can get all the conclusions and the success. For that, we need to have the series of the discussions. We need to sit together. We need to learn from each other. because as coming from the parliament side, I would not say that I'm the one who know each and everything. Of course, learning has no end, but I believe with along each other, the path would get more easier. And in the end, I would really like to thank all the organizations who are sitting over here, private sector, corporate sector, civil society, and especially from the Denmark, I would really like to thank. And of course, all the people from the other provinces are there. And one thing from the media side, I would request from the corporate sector as well, when you people invest a lot in your publicities, in your media campaigns, like media, of course, when you do different ad campaigns, it would be great if in those ads, if you can't give so much time to from your CSR on the media, but if you can develop your ads in a way where the message can go to the people, that how we can not waste them, how we should not use the plastic, or how we can do the recycling, what is the importance. I think that would be great. The small steps could take the lead. Thank you so very much, and have a nice evening and aftar. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Rumina. I now request Mr. Adnan Jalil, KPK Minister for Revenue and Industries, for his comments.
Assalamu alaikum ji. I think I have only a couple of minutes. Okay, much has been talked about. I think it's a total horizon which has to be changed, which has to be put together. It will be very difficult if we just change everything in Pakistan right away, because small scale industries are indulged with recycled products and other things, plastics. So I think the licensing of the new industry has to be based on a more environmental production. Agency has to be tighten up their policies when they have to license the new factories or the new businesses, and they have to have more environmentally friendly businesses. Because I come from Peshawar, and obviously the industrial zone is in the hub of Peshawar. And I always see when the production is going on in the industrial zone, the dirty water just goes and just mingle up with the clean water. So that is a problem we have it over here. I think nobody has a solution right now that we can solve it. But I think eventually if we do start this thing, and collectively, so eventually the provincial governments and the federal government must join hands. And I request Soleri Saab to have a similar seminar in Peshawar. So I think it should be, and all the capital of the country, provincial capitals. So I think there should be a wake-up call for all of us, because so our industry department would like to host this thing in Peshawar after Eid. So do come over, bring your colleagues over there and the donors and all those people who are here today, and let's talk. And I will invite all the business community and the provincial government, and we have to sit together and make a policy. And I will invite the EPA also and the climate ministry. I think it's a long way to go, but I think I remember when I was a child, the policy which you talked about, that we used to use the glass bottles. And we used to take it back to the shop and used to get 1 rupee of that. So I think this plastic PET came into the action, and those glasses have gone now. But I think gradually we have to go back into the glasses or a Tetra Pak and minimizing the plastic. Thank you so much, Ji, and enjoy Aftar.
Thank you so much. Before I move to Ms. Maria Hughes, she's the Associate Program Manager Officer at United Nations Environment Program. I would like to mention that we have been joined by so many partners here today. We have Ms. Hira Wajahat, Ms. Mehreen Sayed from Stimulus, Dabir Himani, Turab Randhawa. They have their startups who are actually recycling the low-graded plastics and working on recycling food systems. We have been joined by Ms. Aisha Aziz from Packages Limited, from Coal Alliance, from Tetra Pak, and so many other industries and leaders who are sitting here, who are actually working at grassroots level to achieve the circularity. I would really appreciate if you can network with them and, listen to them, what they're doing, and we can proceed with the discussion in the follow-up series on the webinars and seminars on circular economy, which we will be doing even after Ramzan and Eid. So with this, I would like to request Ms. Maria Hughes to share her comments on the Green Jobs and Circularity Program of United Nations Environment. Over to you, Maria.
thank you very much. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, you are audible. Yes.
Very good. Thank you. Your Excellencies, distinguished speakers, panelists, and the guests. So my name is Maria Hughes, and I work as a circular economy specialist at UNEP Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific. And I'm really very, very happy to be here, and actually have been listening with the interest in all the remarks and all the discussion that has been had today. Actually, my colleague will follow with some more specific topics on especially green jobs for a circular economy. In the agenda, I was mentioned to be setting the scene, but at this moment, I really feel that the scene has also been set for circularity. And with the existing commitment to develop the circular economy network that SDPI is developing, I'm actually simply now going to come with a few remarks on one of the key enablers for creating green jobs for circularity, but in general for accelerating the circular economy. And the kind of the enabler that I will talk about in a few existing examples is collaboration, cross collaboration across sectors, across regions, across entities. And I think, I mean, everyone in this room, previous speakers have really underlined it, that to achieve the systemic change we need to actually transition to a circular economy, the key here is collaboration. We have to be aware of what our different stakeholders are doing. We have to be aware of the ways of how we can support each other towards circularity. So based on this, UNEP is both leading on some collaborative tools for circular economy or supporting circularity and sustainable consumption and production, but UNEP is also supporting and involved in a few initiatives that are led by others, that are could be relevant for the existing network that is being built to widen its scope and share knowledge. So first of all, UNEP is supporting the Global Alliance for Circular Economy and Resource Efficiency, GACERE, which is an alliance of governments supported by stakeholders who are all willing to work together to share knowledge and advocate for the global circular economy transition and more sustainable management of natural resources. At the moment, there are about, I think, 60 member countries across the globe, 5 in Africa, 3 in South America, 3 in Asia, in Europe, and then in addition, 1 in North America and Oceania. And naturally, this is a build platform that is still developing, but will allow some intergovernmental possibilities for collaboration together with 5 strategic partners who include, for example, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, already mentioned earlier today, the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, the Platform for Accelerating the Circular Economy, as well as regional alliances such as the African Circular Economy Alliance and the Latin American, the Caribbean Circular Economy Coalition.
Ms. Maria, if you may please conclude. I'm so sorry. We are almost ready for the iftar. Thank you.
I understand. Therefore, my last point here will be the last strategic partner of GACERE, the World Circular Economy Forum, which is also a global multi-stakeholder platform that is led by the government of Finland to accelerate the circular economy. This is really a platform bringing together all stakeholders to enhance dialogue. And the next World Circular Economy Forum will be organized in late May. I am very, very happy to provide any further information on either of these platforms if any interest is there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We have been also joined by Ashley Saunders she's the International Partnerships Manager at Waste and Resources Action Program, WRAP UK. Ashley, may I please request, I'm so sorry, but if you can, share within 2-minute bracket your remarks, and, we can have the presentation and that can be shared with the stakeholders, if that's okay with you.
That's absolutely fine. Can you confirm that you can just see that presentation
Yes.
now?
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Ashley Saunders, International Partnerships Manager at WRAP. I have prepared a longer presentation, but I'm going to just highlight a few key things here. But I will be very happy to engage with anyone afterwards if you would like to know a bit more about WRAP does and how WRAP works on the transition to a circular economy. So we all know that 45% of global emissions can only be tackled by changing the way we make and consume products and food. And this is a key contributor to climate change. And it's inclusive dialogues like these which engage cross-sector stakeholders, which are so imperative to progress action towards a circular economy. So it's a great honor for me to be here today and to see so many conversations taking place. In terms of WRAP, we are a climate action NGO. You can find out more about us on our website. And as I said, I'll be happy to talk to you later. But I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the circular economy. My intention was to highlight some of the benefits of circular economy activities and then talk about the 7 steps that WRAP has identified as strategies for transitioning to a circular economy and where key difference and change can really be affected. If you want to read the full report, there's a QR code there on the screen for you. And in terms of the model that we have at WRAP, it's very much about voluntary agreements, engaging with businesses, governments, stakeholders across the entire value chain. And this is to ensure those commitments. Our model is based on targets, and these are measurable, and members sign up to them. In terms of where we work in 40 countries around the world, and I wanted to highlight 3 key areas around food waste, textiles, and plastics, where we are doing work around the world to transition to the circular economy. Global food systems contribute 30% of global emissions, with a third of food produced being lost or wasted. We know that Pakistan is the 6th most populated country in the world, and millions of people in the country don't have an approach to balanced and healthy food, whilst food wastage is also massive in the country. The annual food wastage is estimated to be around 36 million tons in parties, hotels, weddings, and household. But on the other hand, Pakistan is counted as one of those countries who suffer from an alarming level of hunger, as highlighted by the Global Hunger Index. So looking at food and food loss and waste and food supply networks, transitioning this to a circular system could be a great way to look at this transition to a circular economy. Circular food systems feed more people with less land and promote healthy, diverse and plant-based diets.
Thank you, Ashley. I'm sorry I have to cut you, but I would appreciate if you can share this presentation with us and, we can disseminate it with our partners and stakeholders to know more.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mushtaq Memon. I'm so sorry, but you have 2 minutes for your concluding remarks, please. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. So thanks everyone, and STPI, and especially the minister and all the colleagues. But let me use this 1 minute more efficiently. And as I say that take home and bring back, I'm not talking about the deposit and return scheme. I'm talking about the homework. So basically, the homework for today is that for everyone in the room or who's listening, can you please make a 1-pager later on to say why circular economy will be there? Like, let's say the Pakistan's commitments on SDGs, let's say the climate, Paris Agreement, let's say about the multilateral environmental agreements, let's say ESG investments, let's say the sustainability and so on. So you pick your, whether you are a private sector, whether you are a government, you are an NGO, pick from your point to say why Pakistan in 10 years down the road will have circular economy models at the business level, at the national level. Number 2, the enablers. What policies would be required for that? Financing, but more important, the skill sets, the human resources. So if you can map that, and Dr. Abid Suleri will help to reconcile all that to provide us the sort of a scenario that how we are able to help Pakistan as a country, but also the stakeholders to really make this smooth transition to the circular economy. And as I would say that Senator Sherry Rahman also put emphasis, but I always remind myself with Parveen Shakir's these beautiful verses, which I will close this, that नींद हो जब ख्वाबों से प्यारी तो इस अहद में फिर ख्वाब देखे कौन और ख्वाबों को दे ताबीर कौन. So let's dream for circular economy and let's realize this dream. So see you in Peshawar And I will wait for the invitation from the minister from the Peshawar. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mushtaq Mimin. I'll again request the participants who are here from different people, different industries. I know you have joined from different cities of Pakistan, and I'm so sorry we cannot take the comments at the round table, but I'll request if you can network and discuss your ideas and the problems during Iftar dinner. We'll be really happy. And I would like to ensure that we'll be continuing with these dialogues. We'll be taking you online and for the dialogues and for discussing the circular economy transition in Pakistan, hopefully after Eid. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Please join us for the Iftar dinner.
You sent to us in Bangkok. Thank you. Bye-bye.